On January the 10th of 2020, law enforcement in Rockcastle County, Kentucky, was called to a Pug Lane home by a resident who'd witnessed 38-year-old Melissa Wolk attacking her neighbor. Officers arrived in the area to find Wolk on top of 55-year-old Donald Abner. She was striking the man in the face while her pit bull, Denali, mauled him relentlessly. The police had to shoot the dog as they were unable to contain its aggression and were forced to incapacitate Wolk by use of a taser. The woman had refused to obey the officer's orders to stop and was heard repeatedly commanding Denali to attack Abner. Wolk had blood on her hands and feet, as well as a large clump of the victim's hair in her hand. Wolk subsequently admitted to officers at the scene that she was going redneck on Abner. The reason for their dispute remained unclear, and they were reported as being friends. Prior to the altercation breaking out, Abner passed away from his injuries, and he was determined to have suffered deep bites to his head and face. Updates from the fall of 2022 indicated that Wolk had accepted a guilty plea to murder in exchange for 20 years in prison. Number 6. Melvin Allen Cintron. Florida man Melvin Allen Cintron, aged 37, was arrested in September of 2023 for setting fire to a vehicle back in April of that same year. On April the 29th, the man was captured on CCTV igniting a Jaguar XE in front of a home along Northwest 120th Street and 5th Avenue near North Miami. It was determined that the vehicle belonged to Cintron's girlfriend at the time, who was also his cousin. The unnamed woman initially lied to investigators by claiming that the vehicle had malfunctioned. Cintron reportedly forced her to put the cell phone on speaker whenever she spoke to the authorities about what had happened to her car. After a number of failed subsequent attempts to contact her, officers were eventually able to track the woman down and interview her without her boyfriend cousin present. She revealed that Cintron had torched her car in April and that she'd lied because she feared retaliation from the man who was known to always carry a fully automatic gun with a double-drum high-capacity magazine. The victim also told police that he'd stolen her purse, containing about $1,200 in cash, because he thought a bartender was flirting with her. After the theft, Cintron abandoned his cousin girlfriend and left her without a way home from a Miami shopping center. Cintron was subsequently taken into custody at gunpoint outside of a business east of Hialeah on charges of second-degree arson and third-degree grand theft. Number 5. Gretchen Wilson. Country singer Gretchen Wilson was arrested for breach of peace at Bradley International Airport in Connecticut on August 21st of 2018. Wilson, who'd won a Grammy in 2005 for her hit single Redneck Woman, was involved in what was described as a minor altercation with another passenger on a commercial flight coming in from Washington, D.C. The Tennessee native was flying first class and reportedly got into an argument, which devolved into a shoving match with a passenger over priority in using the bathroom. In the aftermath, Wilson returned to her seat but reportedly continued the dispute through threats and hand gestures as she looked back down the aisle, in spite of flight staff telling her to stop. The 45-year-old was met on the tarmac by law enforcement and reportedly became belligerent and combative while she was questioned. Bystander cell phone video would show her being escorted through the airport in handcuffs. Wilson had caused a ruckus on another flight in 2007 and was issued an in-flight citation. During that incident, while she was reportedly inebriated, she insulted a flight attendant upon being asked to place her dog back in its traveling case. Number 4. Incident in Mississippi. The video of a brawl that occurred near Jackson, Mississippi went viral in the summer of 2023, showing 3 men reportedly arguing over a stolen all-terrain vehicle. None of the men in the clip were identified, but the man demanding his ATV back had initiated the confrontation on the property of his rivals. He was opposed by an older man in a yellow shirt and a second man clad in camouflage print pants, who was holding a gun during the initial stages of the conflict. As tensions escalated, the former inched his way towards the accuser and struck him in the head with a wooden plank, causing him to stagger, stumble backwards and drop to the ground. Women were heard pleading with the men to stop in the clip's audio. While bent on one knee, the theft accuser told the man who'd struck him, "You're going to prison for that," before getting back to his feet with blood dripping on his white shirt and lunging towards the man holding the pistol. In the moments that followed, the latter abandoned his firearm and retrieved a shovel. The injured man continued threatening the others before grabbing his crotch and insulting them. The shovel wielder then delivered a hit which the man deflected with his arm. The former yelled, "I'll kill you," before hitting him in the head. Once again, the man was sent stumbling backwards and, still dazed from the blow, got into his pickup truck. As he attempted to drive off, he rammed his vehicle into a truck on the property owned by the man in camouflage pants. In retaliation, the latter raised the shovel in the air and struck the pickup on the driver's side window, shattering it. The pickup then sped away from the property before the video cut off. Justin Lee Hendrick, who posted the video to his Facebook account, offered a backstory to the incident, writing, "Old boy that's leaking had his side-by-side stolen 2 years ago and found out that it was at these two guys' house. A woman in the comments believed to have been at the scene claimed that the pickup driver wasn't there for an ATV, but to bully his way into a home from which he'd been evicted, calling him a scam artist, liar, and cheat." The viral clip earned nearly 1 million views by late August of 2023. Commenters had mixed reactions to it, but one user underlined the situation's ridiculousness by writing that they didn't know who was dumber, the duo for repeatedly striking the man or the man for relentlessly provoking them. Number 3. Mark Wolk. A Florida man was taken into the custody of Palm City police in the fall of 2011 after he shot a lawnmower and got into a fight with his 18-year-old son. While inebriated, Mark Wolk opened fire at the lawnmower and afterwards argued with his son, who wrestled the handgun away from him. 43-year-old Wolk returned with a 12-gauge shotgun, which the teenager was able to remove from him as well, leading to a physical altercation. The two fighting men were spotted by a passing patrol car. The officers got out and ordered Wolk to get off his son, but were ignored. They had to shoot the man with the taser 3 times before they could take him into custody. The teen was unhurt in the fight and refused to press charges. While he was being processed at the Martin County Jail, Wolk asked the authorities what was his crime, as he claimed that he regularly fired the gun in his yard, and regarding the confrontation with his son, noted, "Fighting is what rednecks do." He was charged with aggravated domestic assault with a firearm and domestic battery. Today's topic was requested by Jennifer Bro 7385 and Michael McDaniel 3672. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Joshua Lee Jolin. The term redneck traces its origins to 1830 and was initially used to describe poor white farmers from the deep south of the US. Its literal meaning is based on the fact that working in the field would entail being exposed to the sun and thus having the skin on the back of the neck burnt red. Through the years, the word came to be used as a slur towards impoverished white people, implying they were crass and unsophisticated. However, many of those at whom it would be aimed, particularly in the South, came to either humorously or proudly embrace the term and its associated lifestyle, defining it as a form of independence from the rest of the US. For one Texas man, being a redneck was exalted to the point of religion. 20-year-old Joshua Lee Jolin was arrested in February of 2011 in Manatee County, Florida, for engaging in a lewd and lascivious act with a minor. The victim, believed to have been in her teens, informed her parents, who consequently alerted law enforcement. Jolin was taken into custody by the Bradenton Police Department. They then asked for his details, and under religion, Jolin simply wrote redneck. The man, who was held in jail in lieu of a $10,000 bond, attracted considerable media attention in the aftermath, with a number of commenters jokingly proposing what the foundation of his religion entailed. Stay tuned after number 1, in case you'd also like to watch our release on When Socialites Go Wrong Still. That's coming up right after. Number 1. Redneck Rave. In mid-June of 2021, tens of thousands gathered for a 5-day festival called Redneck Rave, which took place on private land in the small town of Mammoth Cave, 90 miles south of Louisville, Kentucky. The festival was touted to ensure mud, music, and mayhem for ticket buyers. Many of them brought their side-by-side vehicles with photos and videos showing them driving through rough and muddy terrain. The festival was marketed by organizer Justin Stowers as America's wildest and craziest country party, and it arguably lived up to the title. By the end of the festival, at least 48 people were charged in connection to incidents that ranged from drunk driving and other road-related offenses to drug trafficking and felony assault. Those arrested hailed from Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana, Missouri, and Tennessee. Most of the people in attendance were highly intoxicated, and dozens had to be treated for injuries that included lacerations, broken bones, and severed fingers, all because they'd fallen ill from drinking too much. The most talked about accident was a man getting impaled on a log. He'd driven over it in his side-by-side vehicle, and the sharp piece of wood broke through the floorboard, stabbed him through the abdomen, and stopped in a metal plate behind his seat. The man who survived the brutal injury was airlifted from the scene with the log still embedded in his abdomen. Among the reported violent incidents was a man who suffered a slit throat after getting into a drunken brawl with a friend. Another festival attendee, 29-year-old Lancer Hodges, strangled a woman until she passed out after they'd gotten into an argument over a blanket. The woman was left with finger marks behind her ears and scratches on her neck. Hodges fled into the woods but was eventually arrested and charged with strangulation, wanton endangerment, and fourth-degree domestic violent assault. Edmonson County Sheriff Shane Doyle commented on the chaos in the aftermath and said, "There were so many intoxicated people, we just decided if dispatch sends an ambulance in, we're sending a deputy in with them." Organizer Stowers described the festival, which was set for a second installment in the fall, as the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, and thanked the authorities for working with the staff to ensure the event's smooth running. The October edition of the Redneck Rave, which was profiled by Vice in a YouTube documentary, was arguably tamer, and as confirmed by Doyle in the documentary, fewer troublesome incidents were reported. Still, the event resulted in what the sheriff described as the biggest drug bust in the department's history, estimating that they'd seized roughly 75 pounds of marijuana. Number 8. Jacqueline Kent Cook. 29-year-old Jacqueline Kent Cook was arrested for verbally and physically assaulting a stranger at a high-end restaurant in Manhattan on New Year's Eve 2017. The millionaire socialite daughter of former Washington Redskins owner Jack Kent Cook was reportedly on her way out of Caravaggio on the Upper East Side when she made an anti-Semitic remark towards another patron, described as an older woman. Cook was then confronted by the woman's son, 52-year-old Matthew Habercorn, whom she proceeded to strike over the head with her sharp-edged glass purse. The handbag, reported as having been a Lulu Guinness mirrored perspex clutch, inflicted a nasty gash on Habercorn's scalp, which caused blood to drip along the side of his face and stain his collared shirt. In the incident's aftermath, Cook claimed to have been acting in self-defense when she attacked the man, who she accused of chasing her down the street and breaking her finger after she'd insulted his mother. However, in October of 2018, the socialite pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct, and instead of taking her case to trial, was ordered to serve 3 days of community service. Number 7. Rebecca Grossman. On September the 29th of 2020, socialite Rebecca Grossman was responsible for a high-speed traffic accident in Westlake Village, California, which claimed the lives of 2 young brothers. During a preliminary court hearing on the matter, investigators detailed how the woman, then in her late 50s, had been traveling at speeds of up to 81 miles per hour in the moments leading up to the fateful crash. Grossman ultimately blazed through an unmarked crosswalk and struck the 2 victims, who were crossing the street with their parents at the time. One of the boys was killed instantly, while the other passed away later at the hospital. In a conversation with a Mercedes-Benz operator following the collision, Grossman indicated that she didn't know if she had hit anything, but that her airbag had exploded suddenly while she was driving down the road. In the wake of the tragic incident, the socialite was charged with 2 felony counts, each of murder and vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, as well as 1 felony count of hit-and-run driving resulting in death. Grossman, a co-founder of the Grossman Burn Foundation, was initially scheduled to stand trial in May of 2022. However, her legal team subsequently filed a motion to have her aforementioned murder charges dismissed. In September of 2022, Superior Court Judge Joseph Brandolino denied that motion, ensuring a murder trial for Grossman, who would face a maximum sentence of 34 years to life in federal prison. Number 6. Tinsley Mortimer. Television personality and socialite Tinsley Mortimer was taken into police custody on April the 9th of 2016 after allegedly trespassing on her ex-boyfriend's property in Palm Beach, Florida. The 40-year-old woman, who rose to prominence following appearances on the reality TV series High Society and The Real Housewives of New York City, had, prior to her arrest, requested a civil standby because she wanted to retrieve her belongings from inside the residence. Local authorities responded by informing Mortimer that she was in fact trespassing on private property after a previous trespass warning in October of the previous year. The socialite became enraged with the 911 dispatcher and reportedly screamed into her phone before disconnecting the call, at which point officers were sent to the scene. Upon their arrival, they found Mortimer in a state of hysteria, howling about how her purse was inside her former partner's house. The ex-boyfriend, identified as Alex Fanjul, denied that he had any of Mortimer's belongings, and the police then placed her under arrest. A few months later, the woman struck a deal with prosecutors to have her trespassing charges dismissed. In exchange, Mortimer agreed to cease all communication with Fanjul, as well as stay away from his and his parents' homes. Number 5. Jasmine Hartley. The estranged wife of the son of Britain's Lord Michael Ashcroft was arrested in May of 2021 after she fatally shot a police superintendent following an evening of drinking. It was reported that Jasmine Hartley initially told investigators that the victim, Henry Gemott, was a friend and that he'd been hit by a gunshot fired from a boat passing by the San Pedro pier on which they were standing. However, after a jailhouse visit from her lawyer, Hartley's account of the events changed. She admitted that Gemott had been showing her how to load and unload a gun when she inadvertently fired the fatal round at him herself. The woman was charged with manslaughter by negligence before being released on bond, pending the commencement of her trial. The following year, Hartley made international headlines once again after it emerged that she'd allegedly put out a hit on Belize's police commissioner as well as a local magistrate. The socialite vehemently denied these accusations and expressed her personal belief that she was being set up by corrupt government officials. As of recent updates, a trial date hadn't yet been set. If convicted of her charges, Hartley faced the possibility of spending up to 5 years behind bars. Number 4. Jocelyn Wildenstein. New York socialite Jocelyn Wildenstein was accused of launching a vicious attack on her boyfriend at her Trump World Tower apartment in the early hours of December the 7th of 2016. The 71-year-old previously gained international notoriety for her extensive cosmetic modifications and facial plastic surgery, which earned her the derisive nickname Catwoman due to her supposedly cat-like appearance. According to the resulting police report, Wildenstein used her fingernails to claw at 49-year-old Lloyd Klein's face. She then allegedly took a pair of scissors to the man's chest, causing several red marks and substantial pain. Klein, a designer, managed to escape by stuffing the woman inside a closet. Wildenstein later accused him of forcefully pushing her when he returned to the apartment to collect his belongings. In the initial aftermath, the socialite and her boyfriend were both ordered to refrain from making any form of contact with one another. However, the criminal charges stemming from the domestic episode were later dropped at the couple's behest. In November of the following year, Wildenstein and Klein were involved in yet another domestic violence incident at the former's apartment. A reportedly trivial argument had sparked between the two, culminating in a physical altercation that resulted in both of their arrests on charges of misdemeanor assault. Number 3. Sipapa. Ugandan socialite Charles Olimu, known under the alias Sipapa, was placed on the police's most wanted list after allegedly taking part in a home invasion on the night of August the 28th of 2022. According to local authorities, 33-year-old Sipapa, along with a group of yet unidentified accomplices, broke into the Kawuku Bunga home of a South Sudanese national named James Arok. State prosecutors claimed that the intruders used chloroform rags to sedate the house's occupants before stealing $429,000 in cash, a television set, mobile phones, and an Apple laptop. Sipapa and his girlfriend, designer Nakayemba, went on the run in the incident's immediate aftermath. On September the 6th of 2022, it was reported that the pair had been remanded into custody on charges of aggravated robbery, a capital offense that is only triable by the High Court of Uganda. Number 2. Hadley Palmer. Connecticut socialite Hadley Palmer was accused of secretly filming people in her multi-million-dollar Greenwich mansion for her own twisted, voyeuristic pleasure. Court documents reveal that the woman, then in her 50s, had between 2017 and 2018 knowingly photographed, filmed, and recorded certain individuals without their knowledge or consent, and under circumstances where those individuals were not in plain view and had a reasonable expectation of privacy. It was mentioned how one such instance of voyeurism involved a minor, although the specific details of Palmer's misdeeds were largely left out of public reports. The Greenwich Police Department's investigation into the salacious socialite also led to the arrest of Dr. Jerome F. Broadley. The latter was reported as a child psychologist who faced charges of failure to report abuse, neglect, or injury of a child in connection to the case. Palmer, the daughter of wealthy hedge fund founder Gerald Fine, ultimately agreed to a plea deal that reduced her initially severe charges to 3 counts of voyeurism and risk of injury to a minor. She consequently served 90 days at the York Correctional Institution pending her actual sentencing date, which was reportedly scheduled for August of 2022. Number 1. Farook Abdulhaq. In the early morning hours of March the 14th of 2008, Norwegian University student Martine Vik Magnussen left a nightclub in London's wealthy Mayfair district. The 23-year-old was reportedly accompanied by Farook Abdulhaq, a fellow student at Regent's Business School and the son of one of Yemen's richest men, Shahir Abdulhaq. The pair got into a cab together, marking the final time Magnussen was ever seen alive. Hours later, Abdulhaq got on a plane to Cairo, where it is believed he boarded a private jet bound for Yemen's capital city. On March the 15th, after Magnussen never returned home from her night out, her friends reported her missing to local authorities. Then the following day, the young woman's body was found in the basement of an apartment block, hidden under rubble in a block of flats on Great Portland Street. An autopsy determined that she'd been assaulted and fatally strangled. Magnussen's socialite companion immediately became the focus of Metropolitan Police's homicide investigation. After it emerged that Abdulhaq had fled to his home country in the aftermath of the murder, UK authorities issued a formal request for his extradition to the Yemeni government. As of the latest updates on the case, the suspect was still at large, believed to have been holed up in Yemen since the crime occurred. However, in March of 2022, the police arrested an unnamed woman on charges of assisting an offender, which was labeled a significant development in the effort to bring Magnussen's killer or killers to justice. Thanks for watching. Would you rather party in the woods with a bunch of rednecks or go on a cross-country trip with a biker gang? Let us know in the comments section below.